kind of quite a lot of taunts, really. They have a Harrison Jones, but they also have double Armani Warbears, and they have an Azalina. The Azalina is the really interesting card because they can finish their quest, get their Ragnaros hero power, and then in matchups where they're maybe being outvalued, they can actually just take their opponent's hand, have the better hero power, and say, I'm going to beat you with your high value hand and
That's
my
true.
better hero power. So they must have cut taunts. I can't, because there's quite, when you play an odd deck, obviously there's more flex slots because
there's a lot of flex slots in this deck.
Yeah,
there's only one
so
Blackrod Pixie. Maybe that's...
Yeah, but it's hard to know exactly what they've cut for what, but looking at it all, we can see they have a Harrison Jones, so they're expecting other, weapons around. Obviously enough to put that in. They've got a couple of Warbears, which are pretty good cards. They impact the board a lot, having Rush and being 5/7. So it's just a pretty beefy taunt. And then as we touched on, the Azalina.
I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Azalina in general, in most warrior decks actually, because she just gives you the ability to turn some matchups completely on their head. The moment you're an Azalina, Togwaggle Druid has to think very carefully about every move they're making.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where it might be the card that one card change can make the most impact on matchups, excluding things like Gen or Baku where hero powers are altered. But I'm thinking like the core cards, if you add Azalina into matchups, it might have the biggest swing for decks like Odd Warrior that have quite polarized matchups anyway. We see here that Yuyi just trying to figure out, do they want to go wide here? There's the option of hero powering, or they can just try and out-tempo the warrior, but I think it's kind of wise here, recognizing this is going to be a slower game, and just playing a Firefly and a Flame Elemental here, not that great. Much better to just weave them in later for elemental activations going into future turns. Yeah, the might pickup is definitely interesting because it's one of those cards where do you just play it now while it's okay, but it means that you're just going to play a Flame Alley? Do you save it for a turn where you don't really have too much? It makes it a bit. You're probably going to want to be coining out Fungalmancer. So, do you want to go wide to try and guarantee the sticking of the Fungalmancer, or do you want to just go a bit taller here? And a Cosmic Anomaly. They don't have any spell damage in their deck naturally, I believe, but they do have Hagatha to generate spells.
Well, we're talking very long-term planning here. I do like the buff there just because it's the most aggressive play possible for Yuyi. Yuyi's main goal is to win the game before that Ragnaros hero power gets out of control, so dealing any damage while he can seems good. Also, the Tolvir Warden is playable and active this turn, but you mentioned the Fungalmancer a moment ago. It's difficult to pass up the option to play this card and buff 2 minions, especially when that means you get the value trade against the Tar Creeper.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously this does break your elemental chain, but you're now thinking, I'm going into turn 5, I have Fireplume Phoenix and a Flame Firefly if I want to just spend all my mana that way. I have Tar Creeper. I don't have to play a card that requires an elemental activation next turn. Obviously, it'd be great if you could go Quinn Fungalmancer into Servant of Calamos, but you could have done it the other way around. But like you said, getting that value trade into a Tar Creeper just so powerful. Obviously, Yi is trying to be conscious as well of Reckless Flurry, trying to knock as much armor off as early as possible. But Dynamatic as well is the other one that you kind of have to worry about how you're trading because of Dynamatic, how much health you're leaving on the board. Leaving a minion as, hypothetically, a 5/1 is pretty scary against Dynamatic. That's probably just going to die.
I mean, even Super Collider is something else you should think about when you're against Warrior. They have so many different types of removal. Playing around it all is very complicated, but at least just throws this taunt up on the board, and Yuyi can deal with it quite easily and just continue pushing quite a lot of damage to the face.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing about the Warrior removal is it all comes down on turn 5 as well.
Yeah.
Brawl, Dynamatic, Hero Power Flurry, and Super Collider all on 5. Now, this is a great play against Super Collider. It's obviously not so great against Brawl because a lot of the stats are spread out, but having a 2/1 taunt means that if you hit that with Super Collider, it doesn't fight anything else. This board is just beats Super Collider, basically. We can see Least doesn't have any of it.
He has double Iron Beak Owl, so he might actually consider playing one just to put that Firefly back down to 1 attack. That looking like it could buy Least quite a few turns. But Owl plus tank up, it doesn't look good, does it?
No, and like the double Owl doesn't feel great. Cycling the shield block it's okay, but sometimes you want to save shield block to go sort of shield block hero power flurry and just have a huge board sweep that basically nothing in the Shaman deck lives against. And yeah, like you said, we do see the Owl hero power coming out, sending the Firefly back to where it should be as a little 1/2 minion. And we'll probably just see Yugi play these Servant of Calamoses over the next couple of turns. Maybe even a Blaze Caller next turn. You might save it for burst. It kind of depends on the board Least presents you with. But these are super high value minions when you have them active. Ooh.
All 3 of these are worth considering.
Yeah, so this is Alakir, Grumble, and I'm forgetting the name of the card in the middle, but it gives all your elementals +2 attack.
I feel like it's got the word Cauldron in it, and I don't know why. I think I'm wrong.
But
yes,
I can't remember the name.
That is what that card does anyway.
And that is a super powerful effect when you look at this board.
Yeah, right.
It's 4 elementals. That's just +8 damage next turn, and on a 7/7 body. That's huge.
Gonna go with the Grumble though. So Grumble is potentially a lot of value, I guess, if it bounces back the Blaze Caller, the Servant of Calamos itself. But that's quite a that's no sure thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a slow play. I think, to be honest, I think Grumble was my least favorite of the options there, because you're not trying to win this as a value game, right? They have the quest. They're not trying to outvalue you. They're trying to effectively just stall the game and then end the game. So I would have much preferred a tempo pick here, which would have been Alakir or the Mystery Elemental that is +2.
It's Cauldron Elemental, I was right.
Oh, okay, Cauldron Elemental. I actually really liked the Cauldron Elemental.
I was like, it's
Cauldron there as well.
Cauldron something? Yeah, kind of obvious what the something was, I guess.
See the ball come out, and the Silenced Firefly does win that. So here we have, double Blaze Caller. It's a lot of reach here. So Yu's definitely got a decision now. There's sort of, do you go for the slower plan with getting the Servant of Calamos out now? Do you just say, I've got 2 Blaze Callers, playing 1 on turn 7 is good enough?
So it doesn't actually push all that much damage this turn, but it probably survives. Or it possibly survives.
Yeah, I mean, the crucial thing is it knocks armor off, right? So you're kind of safe against Shield Slam and Flurry there.
There's nothing better, I guess, as well. Like, what else is Yi going to do this turn? Play Grumble because it's better stats? I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I feel like if you've taken this Grumble, you want the very high value line out of it, where, and 1 mana Blaze Caller is probably good enough for it, to be honest, but you definitely don't want it just on a Firefly. And there is the Shield Slam pickup, so Shield Block, we could see come out here, just start cycling it, get the armor, destroy this big minion. Picking up the Ziliax. Ziliax is a real power card of the Boomsday project.
Oh yeah,
it's just incredible how. I mean, it's just a 3/2, but it's the fact that it offers healing really that is so key, and why it's just played in so many decks that typically don't have access to much healing.
But anyways, now that Shield Slam's been used up, Yi can feel even more comfortable just going ahead, slamming another big threat. He can pretty much do that every turn for the foreseeable future. He can also Grumble his Grumble to end up with an infinite amount of 1 mana Grumbles. Like, he can just keep healing, using them to heal each other for 1 mana.
And also the thing to note is that every time you grumble a grumble, adds another one to your Shadow Walk. So
right,
if you have a board, then it will pretty much always get grumbled if you've loaded your Shadow Walk with grumble, as opposed to just shooting 5 damage at the minions. You're probably going to get them back to your hand.
it's a shame there's no Life Drinker or Sound Knight Chain Gang in this deck, huh?
Oh, rest in peace, traditional Shadow Walk Shaman. Were you a fan of that deck? I know it was like pretty polarized on whether people liked it or not.
I was, yeah. I like with the Togwaggle Druid, I found that there were so many different ways of playing the deck and so many little niche win conditions you could go for, or so much nuance into when exactly you should go ahead and slam the Shadow Walk. I enjoyed playing it a lot.
Mm-hmm. I was a big fan of it, but I know it wasn't the most popular with some people. But also, nerfing it has let things like this happen, right? I'm almost certain we would not be seeing this style of deck in play now if that Shadow Walk Shaman still existed. Yi again with just another difficult turn. These grumbles are looking good, but they're not amazing. I mean, they are 6 mana 7/7s, but you have to replay the minions you already played. Obviously, this Tolvir Stone Shaper would then just be active again as a 1 mana card. So you could look to maybe do something like take the trades on board, play the Fireplume Harbinger, bounce them back into your hand, discount elementals a lot. You have a handful of elementals. Your whole hand pretty much gets cheaper.
That is a lot of value from that card. Look at that.
Yeah, opting to play the Blaze Cooler as well, as opposed to just grumbling this. This kind of makes sense, because now you can grumble the Blaze Cooler, reduce the cost of them again, and at least just really struggling here. This hand isn't looking like it's going to get much done here. So, the Super Collider can kind of clear up 2 minions, but it's not looking great.
At what point does Lise have to consider playing that Azalina? Because he knows that he's going to get a pretty good hand. All of those cards have been discounted. It's a very weak play onto the board this turn. It would mean Lise is behind, but I wonder if he's thinking about it. Or at least over the course of the next few turns will be.
So with Caster Vision, I know we can see that, oh, if you just Azalina this against this grumble is going to hurt you a lot. But I get what you mean. You know, Lise doesn't know that 2 grumbles are in hand. But I think it just leaves you so behind on board, because you're playing a 3/3 and it's like, at best it's contesting the 3/2, and you're getting effectively ran, because a lot of these cards in your opponent's hand are going to be elementals. You can kind of reasonably assume that, and you won't have an elemental chain going, so it's really slow.
I think Warbear was probably just the obvious play here.
Yeah,
you can set up the Super Collider.
Traded the Fireplume Harbinger there, which would have been a great play at, stopping this snowball. But this is just an insane turn for Yu if he chooses to play the grumble here.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Like, why wouldn't he?
Yeah, you get the value trade, you push a little bit of damage, the Servant can be played again and discover another elemental.
And then if he can bounce the grumble with the second grumble, then they're going to start costing 1 mana.
Yeah.
For 1 mana away, Yui can bounce his entire board every single turn.
Yeah. And there's the discount. And, oh, a 1 mana discount on cards that cost 1. It's so powerful.
So this is why he went for the grumble then. This is just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
What can Lise possibly do about this? Even if he cleared the board somehow. The hand is still the nuts.
Yeah, and Lisa's hand is leaving a lot to be desired. Baku, not the card you want to draw. Yu is just playing around Super Collider pretty well, to be honest, because the 1/1's in the middle. You can now, by playing this, yeah, you can tank the 6/6 to kill the 4/5, but that where you want to be?
Oh, it's so bad. But at least can't use Azalina this turn to copy the hand because again he just gets so behind. He's behind on board then and has no way of coming back. I guess in an ideal scenario he could Azalina now and then what, top deck the Reckless Flurry, but even that doesn't look ideal.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, you're gonna Azalina that hand, you're gonna see the second Grumble, and you're gonna want to just bottom right out of that game. It's not. This is just so ugly for Lise. And Yuyi just showing the real power of this deck. Yeah, here comes the Azalina. I mean, you can sort of vomit a bunch of the stuff you get onto the board because it's been discounted so much. But seeing that second Grumble is going to be some very bad news. Okay, picking up a Shimmering Tempest could be interesting. What mage outs do you get now? Things like Blizzard, stall for a turn, maybe scroll of a deck of wonders, shuffle the scrolls into your deck.
I mean, there isn't many outs available for Lise, so maybe that's what he has to go for. Is there something better? There's no expensive spells in the warrior deck, so Dragon's Fury is no good. I think you're right. I think Scroll of Wonders is the only way. Not a sentence you like to say.
And also, not a sentence you often say when you're talking about Odd Warrior. When was the last time you played Odd Warrior? Wait, doesn't this just go infinite? No, you have to... Wait. You always have to pay 1 mana for the Fire Plume, but... Was this a miss-lethal?
If there was a second Fire Plume, they could go in.
Because you can play the Blaze Caller for 5 damage, for 0 mana. You Grumble it. You Fire Plume your hand again. You play the Blaze Caller. You Grumble it. Because you've got 2 Grumbles. How much damage would that have been? I feel like that was lethal.
Yeah, 20, right? At least.
At least, yeah. But I feel like this was just a miss-lethal.
Honestly, Toast Monster, this is such a complicated hand and board that I'm not confident either way, but I believe you.
There might have been issues with hand size. That might be the problem here. But you could always just play your cheaper elementals on the left of your hand. You know, your Tar Creeper, your Flame Melee. Because if they get milled, it's okay. I think this was a miss-lethal, so yeah.
Regardless,
they just kept bouncing the Blaze. I mean, it's still an amazing spot, but you gave your opponent like a top deck brawl out or something like that.
But Lise doesn't come back from this.
No.
Even with the brawl off the top there, where Yuyi's hand is still just ridiculous.
Yes, definitely.
Even with the quest complete, that's not going to be dealing 30 damage anytime soon. Wow. What a weird game.
Yeah. And depending where this Ragnar's hit goes, it does hit the Serpent. But this is still lethal, right? Because you can just Grumble this back. And then just keep playing the 1 mana. It costs you 2 mana per combo now, but that's okay. Yeah, Yuyi sees it now. Maybe hand size was an issue before and I'm missing that. Because it was very complicated with your hand size. But yeah, Yuyi recognizing it now. Able to just kill off or keep Grumbling and shooting 5 and kill the Odd Warrior.
And now we see why this Shaman deck has been getting banned over the last few days. It got onto the board, though.
There's a reason you're only allowed to put 1 copy of a legendary card in your deck. That's what I'm going to say for that one.
New Shaman OTK deck where you play every Discover you can possibly play to try and get a second Grumble. That doesn't seem consistent.
Nope, I think you get Grumble 100% off your Servant of Kalamos, and then they always stick. Your opponent literally can't clear them. And yeah, I think that was a very niche scenario for an OTK there, but you getting it done with the Elemental Shaman. And this is I said I wanted to see this deck. I'm glad it's got the win. We're going to be able to see it again now. I wonder if we'll get the Shaman Mirror.
Wow. So Peanut Shaman versus Elemental Shaman. So Peanut Shaman is very much an anti-aggro Shaman deck. Would you consider this Elemental Shaman an aggro Shaman deck?
I didn't until I saw that game.
Well, it's very mid-rangey, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Peanut Shaman's actually that well equipped to deal with mid-range stuff. I mean, you have things like Zentimo into like hexing multiple targets and things like that, but I don't know if it runs enough removal, because that was just a very threat-dense kind of deck there. Servant of Calamos discovering things. If you can, even just the natural grumble in your deck, if you can discover 2 things off your Servant of Calamos, or even discover Servant of Calamos from Servant of Calamos, that's just so much value. And 4/5s are pretty chunky. Those 4s add up really quickly.
Well, it looks like we are getting ready to jump straight into game number 2. If I'm understanding the stream correctly, I think when the epic music starts, it means things are about to start happening.
They look like they're ready for the game as well.
They do. I'm not sure that we've even seen what's been picked yet. But
no, I don't think we had.
Ooh. Ah!
So
it's
going to be the mage.
It's Quest Mage, isn't it? No, it's Odd Mage. It's Odd Mage.
Odd Mage, yeah.
Odd Mage versus Elemental Shaman. Wow. Those nerfs and this format has changed the meta so much.
Yeah, this is not a matchup I bet you thought you'd be casting last week.
No. Or ever, actually. Well, I remember when the Hero Power Mage stuff came out with Rustican's Rumble, people were saying, yeah, you know, this mechanic just isn't good enough. But now, it finally is good enough.
Yeah, I mean, Odd Mage got obviously quite a bit of support. It has things like the Black Cat, but also things like Daring Fire Eater just scale so well. Like that plus a Clockwork Automaton, it really adds up. And you give up the traditional Mage burn that's kind of just been around forever, right? That's supported Mage, but you give it up for a consistently powerful hero power. There's a reason the Hunter hero power can't hit minions.
I mean, it can. You just need to put a Streamweedle Sniper in your deck.
God, that's a throwback card.
So I guess the Mage is playing the aggressive game here, and the Shaman is... Actually, I don't know. Like, they're both just going to aggressively be fighting for the board.
Yeah, this does feel like it's going to be very snowbally as a board matchup, because neither player really runs AoE, right? It's the odd secret Mage, so there's no Dragon's Fury, there's no Flame Strike. I don't think there's a Flame Strike anyway. I will just double check. But because of that, it's so hard to... If you're behind on board, it's so hard to catch up. Yeah, there is no Flame Strike in this. So, yeah, it's... The Shaman has a 1-drop going first, and they have the Earthen Might to follow up on this, which is so key here, I think. Because otherwise, this Flame Elemental will just get pinged down on turn 2, but instead...
It's going to get pinged down on turn 1! What?
Wow. That is crazy.
Okay, so, I mean, you can argue that if he starts pinging now, he can just play Ragnaros on turn 7. I guess.
There's also the fear of the Earthen Might, right? Because you kept a card, you're thinking, what are you keeping in this matchup?
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of the cards you're keeping, because, I mean, yeah, if they had a 3/4 this turn, and the Odd Mage just goes into the turn 2, what do they even do? Like, they coin out another 3/4 to contest. It's not where you want to be. But Yi able to either just fit in the other Might now with the Flame Elemental, or just play a Tar Creeper. And a Tar Creeper on 3 is just, oh, well, suddenly you're not really connecting anything to face for a long time. It nullifies any threat of things like Vicious Fledglings. Even value trades Kirintor mages and forces the ping.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Kylan's hand, you just see just how powerful this Tar Creeper is. I guess the Pyromaniac lives if it trades against the Tar Creeper and then can ping it away to kill it and get the card draw. But that's over the course of 2 turns.
Yeah, and obviously we see double Earthen Might in Yi's hand, so you can sort of use that to block pings from the Mage, which is obviously very powerful. Glacial Shard pickup as well. It means that you could just potentially play one Earthen Might this turn, fill out the mana with 2 elementals in hand to keep the Servant of Calamus live next turn. An Ozrak. What's the biggest you think you've ever seen an Ozrak?
5'10".
I was staring down a 530 one time.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I lost that game, shockingly.
530.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Not looking like a hand where we're going to see a 530 this game. I'm thinking that's a Calamos into a 510 kind of hand. But you're just trying to figure out whether it's worth playing these other elementals and keeping the chain active to just play Servant of Calamos next turn. And I think keeping this chain active seems very powerful here.
If there were ever a deck where that Ozrak could get quite big, I mean, we're maybe even talking 515. Because there's so many elementals in Yuyi's deck. And so many bouncers as well. Like with you got the Bog Slosher, you got the Servant of Calamos, which can discover even more elementals. So that Ozrak might not be as bad as it seems.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about how the last game played out, obviously that was with double Grumble, but even if you just grumble a bunch of 1-mana cards, you play the Fireplume Harbinger and discount them, you can then just spew so many cheap elementals onto the board and make it pretty big. And like I was saying before, where there's no AoE, there's actually no real single target removal in these decks either. They just fight for board the fair way, as it were, with just their own minion combat. So if you can make a big Ozrak, that's actually so hard for the Odd Mage to deal with.
You can just continue to curve out here. Obviously, there is the option to play the Earthen Might, which would allow an even better value trade with the Tar Creeper, or with the Flame Elemental if you wanted to play it on that to value trade the Kirintor Mage. I guess dealing with the Pyromaniac's probably a priority, just to prevent Kylans from drawing cards with the hero power.
But if you trade off the Glacial Shard and the Flame Elemental into the Kirintor Mage, there's no real way you can get that much value out of the hero power. It'd have to be things like Daring Fire Eater and Ping, but then that's kind of your full turn. I think you would be okay with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Cauldron Elemental, again, appearing on the right-hand side there. And
picking up that card, paying dividends.
I think it's the pick.
Earth Elemental is a really big minion to just play, though, and it kind of... I mean, if you look at your turn 7, you don't have one, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe overloading going into your turn 7 is okay.
Ah, okay, well. Yuyi, again, disagrees with both of our picks.
I do understand this because, like I was saying, when the mage has no AoE, if you just make a super wide board,
that's true,
you can just play Earthen Might next turn, hopefully hit a playable elemental, which needs to cost 4 or less, which I believe on average you should find a playable elemental for that. You keep the chain going, you get the Stone Shaper going down, although that's not that is an elemental itself, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is, because you just discovered it. And then you just keep your chain going for Calamos into Shudderwock, so this is a pretty powerful looking curve.
Oh, there you go.
Menacing Nimbus, yep, that will also fill in the curve.
It's a playable elemental to go down this turn alongside the Earthen Might. What Yuyi's board is just getting more and more powerful. This deck is insane.
Oh, and an Alakir for some extra burst finisher. This is looking so powerful for Yuyi. And we have to think, what are RNG going to do about this? If they lose this game, they're in such a bad spot. Oh, that is a powerful curve.
Got the Cauldron Elemental. I'm going to say Cauldron Elemental as many times as I can during this cast, just so you know.
Yeah, you've got to make sure you get value out of flicking the card up. Obviously, Yuyi would have loved to have rolled a healing totem here, blocked pinging off the 6-2. But I think with this kind of curve, you're not too sad about it anyway. If your opponent, what they can do for 4 mana after they've spent 2 mana pinging your buffed Servant of Calamos.
And Kylans are sort of just trying to find something worth doing this turn. The spell damage might make this Cinderstorm worthwhile. Maybe it can kill 1 or 2 of these minions. But wow, that's about the worst the Cinderstorm could possibly have been.
Yeah, and Kylan Sabak did not look happy about that one. If there was an arcane missiles to go with this, you might be like, oh, this is fine. I can trade and I can ping and then missiles and all that good stuff, but it's just not available here.
And he could have considered playing the ping first to deal with that Servant of Calamos, as it had 2 health. But I guess instead he wanted to fill out the curve better. He was hoping that those Cinderstorms would hit that Calamos or the Menacing Nimbus twice.
Yeah, and just be able to go for the Kirintor runes kind of land. This feels so rough, yeah. And we're going to see where you go wide again with the Stone Shaper. It's not Stone Shaper. I'm blanking on that card name as well now.
Yeah, I've totally forgotten it as well. It's not a card we see very often.
It's something to do with stone, I think.
It does look like it's made of stone. I'll give you that.
It does look. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. But either way, going wide with this, and it's just so rough for Kylan's. What does Kylan's do here? There's no AoE available. There's no missiles. I mean, playing a Ragnaros isn't the one. Like, what does a Ragnaros do here? And this into Calamos, into Shadowwalk. This might just be game for Yi.
Is it Stone Sentinel?
Stone Sentinel. Oh, that sounds right. Is it just Stone Elemental?
So here you're typing away. Try to look it out.
You're right. It is Stone Sentinel.
Haha.
Oh, you know you're on point today with the obscure cards.
Didn't even look that one up.
I mean, Stone Sentinel is actually just powerful here.
Oh yeah.
What does our mage do?
I can't
so behind on board, and it has no catch-up mechanic.
The 1-2 punch of the Stone Sentinel into the Cauldron Elemental is just absurd here.
Yeah, it's kind of, you have a lot of choices as Yi, right? Because you could just get the Calamos Battlecry into the pool, so that you can just play Shadowwalk on 9.
Okay, if this Ragnaros goes face, Cauldron Elemental is just lethal.
Yeah.
I think it's still lethal.
So it's 5, 7, 11 plus 8.
That's 19.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
You're just going to be counting it up and...
Throughout this tournament, we've been saying, why is the Elemental Shaman being banned over and over again? And here, in the Grand Finals, Team WE is showing us why. As he takes down Kylan's 2-0. One more win, and Team WE win Korea versus China.
This is just crazy. I mean, I remember when Shadowwalk was first released, the first deck I built was an Elemental Shadowwalk deck. And it felt so close to being there. It just needed some more tools. And maybe it has them now. Maybe in this meta, it's just good enough.
Can Team WE get the 3-0 sweep? Or will RNG be able to make a grand 3-0 comeback in the finals? Don't go anywhere. More Korea versus China after this. It all comes down to the Quest Rogue. Can that make the ultimate comeback against Team WE and their elemental Shaman? It's time to find out.
This is the second time today we've seen a team on the cusp of being 3-0'd, and they've just picked Quest Rogue as the last deck. I think, again, this is the thing of we need to try and win this series with this deck now. What's the best deck we have to win the series as opposed to just winning this one game? And Quest Rogue seems to be the answer to that question yet again. So, wasn't able to do it last time. Will it this time? It's series point for WE.
Well, I've got to say, as far as Quest Rogue's hand goes, Quest Rogue hands go, this is a pretty good one. Sonya deckhand. Mwah.
And a Brewmaster, so you can even bounce a deckhand preemptively, get an extra credit on there, get the 3-2 in play, that you can also trade with Sonya. You're right, this is looking really good. You're trying to figure out what's the best way to go with this curve. I mean, there's a lot of options here. Do you coin out 2 1-drops and then play your Fireplume Harbinger? Do you go for the 1 coin 3 into 3? Very, very difficult. These early turns are often crucial against decks like Quest Rogue as well, where if you give them an inch, they take a mile. Opts to coin out the Fireplume and then play the Firefly. So I'm going to go for the sort of 2-drop into 2-drop, I guess, is the way this is kind of working out. Does mean that Yui has a Bog Slosher available next turn as well to then just play a very, very powerful Firefly if this Fireplume Harbinger gets traded. I struggle to see a world where the Fireplume doesn't get traded here, just because when they coin that out, you've got to be scared of that hand, right? Like, that hand has got to be super heavy on elementals. I mean, the deck is generally, but that hand is probably just all elementals if they're coining that out.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned in the last couple games just how powerful that Fireplume Harbinger can be.
It doesn't get traded. Leo goes for the Brewmaster on board.
I'm yet to be convinced by the Bog Slosher yet. I've not seen it do anything particularly amazing. However, I'm now imagining this scenario in which the Bog Slosher bounces the Fireplume Harbinger and further discounts the hand, and I guess that could be pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just so scary. I mean, the fact that it's a 2-mana 1/1, not great. 2-mana 4/4, suddenly you don't mind playing that.
Is this just a Sonya here? Oh, no, because there's no dagger, so the deckhand doesn't have charge.
Yeah, but it looks like it's going to get cleaned up here. And yeah, this...
What a slow turn.
Not going to have the insane value, but you are still just behind on board now.
Yeah.
You have the Sonya Scale Hide, but that's obviously just so much slower than having a minion on board already, or even the deckhand, because it has 1 health. See the Novice picked up, probably going to see that cycled, and just look to mitigate as much early damage as possible here for Leo. Looks like they want to save the Glacial Shard, which kind of makes sense because although this 3/4 is going to, push quite a bit of damage here, bigger minions are coming that you're going to need to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, it's a premium bounce target against this kind of deck.
Exactly.
Where you want the repetitive block this damage so that I live.
Vanish is going to come in very handy at some point. I think Lee would quite like to see a Shadow Step at some point, because if he could then play Sonya and Shadow Step it would set up a very nice Sonya into Scale Hide, or now Tati deckhand turn.
Yeah, this is the second deckhand already as well. So you can fit in an extra 2 deckhands here, so then you'd be on 3. But is that good enough yet? Do you need to wait a little bit longer? This is where Quest Rogue's so difficult. Can you take this damage? Do you go for the Sonya here, make them trade into that? Do you just go for the Shard and stall, say you're going to Vanish, and then do Sonya deckhands after the Vanish?
Sonya just doesn't look like she does enough this turn.
Yeah, I feel like going for the Glacial Shard just to set up, saying I'm going to vanish next turn and that's fine. Vanishing next turn and then having a 7 mana Sonya deckhand kind of play definitely seems stronger because it's on the reload as well, where they've played some of the minions but not all of them, crucially, so that your deckhand is just removing a bit more. Playing the Scalehide as well for effectively, if it effectively heals you 4 here, which does seem like it could be crucial.
Oh, but now the 5 mana Fire Elemental can come down, just blow it up instantly.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he'll blow up the Glacial Shard. Oh no.
No, because then you just trade into the Glacial Shard, I think.
Well, this way his minions take 1 more damage, but I guess he gets far less
one
health.
Healing, I think, was the key factor. And the second Scalehide pickup. This is getting super close here for the Quest Rogue. They're almost close to stabilizing, to be honest.
Sort of, yeah. But now Yi can just go ahead and throw back down the Fire Elemental. That's 3 more damage to the face. Next turn he's got Blaze Caller. That's another 5.
The problem is, though, this deckhand Sonya gets the quest done next turn, and then you can't leave the Sonya on the board, and then the Scalehide's healing 4. It is close to just being there for the Quest Rogue. You're just trying to put as many stats into play as possible, spreading it as wide as possible as well, so that I feel like you have to go for the deckhand quest completion here, and then look to go sort of quest Scalehide plus a minion, a 1 mana minion next turn.
Right.
Which could be deckhand, because you'll obviously have another deckhand available. It does let you clear up 2 minions, but then that's all you're healing on, because the Scalehide before got tempoed out.
Well, can you do it with the deckhand instead, right?
Oh yeah, you're doing with the deckhand this turn, but next turn, if that Scalehide gets cleared, that's all your healing gone. Or for a long time anyway, until you find maybe a Ziliax.
Sonya gets thrown out, but she's doing her job at least.
Yeah, it's getting the quest complete done, which is key for Rogue here. So that is going to be the quest complete in hand. So next turn you do have mana to play deckhand, Scalehide, and quest. Sonya can be a key resource post-quest completion, though. You can use it with things like a Scalehide to just run into a big minion a few times, heal yourself up. So, not going to be an option anymore.
I like what he appears to be doing here. He's going wide. Rather than just playing down the Fire Elemental or the Blaze Caller, he's going to go ahead and drop Menacing Nimbus and the... I've forgotten the name of that card now. Phoenix?
Fireplume Phoenix?
Fireplume Phoenix. I was halfway, well, a third of the way there.
Yeah,
Fireplume Phoenix deals with the Sonya nicely. He's now got a wide board, and Lee can only deal with 1 or 2 of these, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because you know there's a charging deckhand coming down, so you want it to only be able to hit one thing, right? And sort of keep as much power in play as possible. The Shadow Step, pretty big pickup, though, because you can Shadow Step the Scalehide and...
But now he's really close to stabilizing.
Yeah. But Yi still has a lot of damage in hand. If enough minions stick at some point, a Fungal Mance is coming down, Fire Ellie, Blaze Caller, all very, very key burn spells, effectively, in the form of minions.
Three out of 4 minions being dealt with right now. Or wait, is Lee just going to bounce the Scalehide and hold on to it?
It means that you can lab recruiter it, but
yeah,
it's pretty scary. It gives your opponent things like Fungal Mancer, but maybe you're saying that's okay because I'm going to draw more Scalehides. It's so scary with no card draw in hand, though.
Yeah, right. The moment...
But maybe you do just hold on to it here.
The moment Lee draws a Mimic Pod, an Elven Minstrel, Valera, he's going to be in a great position. Can he just survive for a little bit longer until he gets there?
Yeah, I mean, Yi does have an interesting question again now that knows there's a Scale Hide in hand. How do I put minions into play here? The Scale Hide Shadow Step as well also gives you an idea that the card in hand could be Valera, because you're thinking, oh, well, they've held that so they can double Scale Hide me after. So they're going to Valera on 9, then they're going to double Scale Hide me plus whatever they draw. So it's definitely an interesting position for you here.
Did that Nimbus just give him a Nimbus?
Yes, it did.
Infinite value.
That's almost as much value as a Valera.
But yeah, Yi is just going to make the most aggressive play onto the board as he can. I wouldn't be surprised if he made that trade and then Fungal Mancered. Yeah.
Just the damage, gets the buff in. And then this draw here is very key for... Brewmaster is...
Oh, it's okay. Big. It's okay. Lee cannot deal with both of the Nimbuses.
Nimbai?
Nimbu? But he can go Scale Hide, bounce, Scale Hide, deal with maybe both of the smaller minions, and then even play the Lab Recruiter. That way he fills up his board full of 4/4s. Well, not full of 4/4s. He has 3 4/4s on the board, and more heals in his deck.
Yeah, and Yi's just going to have to kind of take the approach of they're playing off the top of their... My opponent is playing off the top of their deck. I have a hand of options. I need to just make good plays for the board that don't get beaten by 1 card a turn. Ooh, interesting. Choosing not to Lab Recruiter the Scale Hide.
Oh, he's just literally just playing it for the body. Okay.
This kind of makes sense because the cards you were saying, you know, like Mimic Pod, like... And holding the Scale Hide? Interesting. Like Mimic Pod, like Elven Minstrel, are very key here. And by putting more Vicious Scale Hides into your deck, you are diluting the pool, but maybe Scale Hides aren't good enough to draw by themselves, right? You need more than 1 card a turn right now. Yi just has so much in the way of resources that you don't, that this is probably... I mean, a Blaze Caller coming down here cleans up 1 minion, you can Glacial Shard the other, if you wanted to. Opts to play the Menacing Nimbus, though. Maybe just looking to push face, even. If you Blaze Call a face, you are very, very close to just having lethal. You can just go Fire Rally and Glacial Shard. Trade off the 1/2. This does set up lethal, and you're against 1 Scale Hide. You're probably okay. Has to be Vanish or Valera now, I think.
Shadow Step isn't good enough, is it? Lee can heal for 8 while dealing with the 2/2 and one of the 4/4s. That puts him on 18, but that leaves 12 damage on the board.
5 in hand.
Blaze Caller, that's
just good enough.
Yeah, but then what on earth does Lee do next turn?
Yeah, exactly.
Draws Valera. He goes Valera
into
Ziliax.
What though?
Into Ziliax.
Yeah, Ziliax. Yeah. I mean, it could happen. It very much could happen. And I mean, it's the only option, right? You have to do it. You can't try and eke more healing out of this Scale Hide than you already have. But this is where drawing 1 card a turn as Quest Rogue is just not good enough. 10 on board, 5 available in hand. Very, very close for you here. Very close to just winning this game and winning this tournament. Shudderwock.
Wait, is that just better? No, it can't be. Surely putting Lee to one just makes sense here because
you could also just Blaze Caller the minion and play a Tar Creeper and just have board, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But putting him to 1 takes Vanish away as an out, I guess.
Like, what is the minion even doing at this point? It just doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, you set them to 1 to take away Vanish as the out, I think. So now Vanish isn't good enough, and it has to be Valera. Has to be now. It's not Valera, and Yi's going to be taking it.
So, and you can hear the audience in the background. Team WE are the winners of Korea versus China. And what a strong performance throughout the week. I don't believe they've won every single game. They did drop to the lower bracket and play yesterday, but they made their way back up and they managed to win at the finals with a great performance indeed.
Yeah,
3-0 sweep with Elemental Shaman. Like, Elemental Shaman, I'm saying it now, that is the kingpin of this tournament. It ate up so many bans, made it to the finals, and then swept. How could a deck have done better than that?
Yeah, I mean, it shows how interesting different formats make things, right? Like here, Priest and Hunter almost universally taken off out of every game, and then you see what decks really shine, and who would have thought it's Elemental Shaman?
Well, Yulove, Yuyi, Sparkling, and Yonsu are the team that have managed to win Korea versus China. And this has been a fantastic tournament all the way through the week. I know that you just joined for today, Toast Monster. I know that you had been tuning in throughout so far. We've seen some wacky decks. It's an awesome format that's led to some very different Hearthstone. And for me, I think it's really been a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, definitely. It's been one of my favourite tournaments to watch in recent times, just because when things require more strategy, so, you know, a 9-deck format, that's a super... Already, just saying there's going to be 9 decks makes it so much more complicated and so much more interesting as to what can do well. And then you've added in more bans, and this is what happens. You get exciting games with exciting decks and exciting players, to be honest.
As we see some of the best moments from that series. Yuyi just look at these boards. Now I want to go away and try out Elemental Shaman, but I know deep down that I'm just going to lose to all the Hunters and Priests on ladder, but I'm thinking with my heart here, not my head, Toast Monster. I want to go and play some Elemental Shaman. I want to be like Yuyi.
Yeah, that's often the way it is. You play Hearthstone with your heart, and you have a lot of fun for it. That's the way I look at it.
And then the final game was this Elemental Shaman versus the Quest Rogue.
And the Rogue was so close to being there, but just ran out of gas at the end.
I don't think he drew a single Minstrel or a single Mimic Pod in that game.
No, I think the only card draw was Novice.
So, unfortunately, when that happens with Quest Rogue, you do tend to run out of resources. And big hugs all round for Team WE as they take down their fellow Chinese team. And I believe that is going to be us done for the English broadcast. I'm going to see if there's an interview and leave the stream up if there is one. But Toast Monster, thanks very much for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed being a part of this great event.
I have. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And for now, that is a goodbye from us. Enjoy any interviews that might appear. You can check out the end of the stream on twitch.tv/TeamInven as well, where they are streaming in Korean. But thanks for watching. Goodbye.
정상에 오른 최강은 바로 나. 그 누구도 역세서 역전할 수 있지. 승리도 한순간 방심한다.